Right. We're going to get started. Good. They didn't get that on the recording. All right. We're going to get started. So we're going to do no more than 15 minutes of management Q&A, like round robin kind of stuff, 15, 20. And then we're going to go into the refresher on what to do if there's ever a lockdown situation or an active shooter at Woodland Pond. Okay. I will start with Tom to do any management Q&A stuff. You got to say something.
Oh, I hadn't really thought of anything. Oh, cages, true. All right, yeah, that's true. All right. Morning, I'm Tom Tango, Director of Plant Operations. And you'll see me again later as I talk about active shooter stuff. Real quick, I thank you, all of you who responded already about the storage cage selection and helping us with what we need to do to get to a spot where we can use the south storage room. I pretty much have all the answers, and we need to just figure out what we're doing and who's going where. I don't know that yet. But starting Monday morning, December 2nd, we will be going through the storage rooms, and items that are not in a storage cage, we are going to be disposing of. So if there's something that you know that you have that's yours, and it is not in a storage cage, but it's just sitting in the aisles down there, if it's still there on Monday morning, it goes away. But also, if there is something in your cage that you no longer want, if you go down there before Monday morning and put it out on the aisle, it will also go away. So it's not like we're doing this to, be difficult. We're doing this also to help, those of you that want to dispose of things. All right. And if there's something in your cage that you no longer want, but you think that it is too good to dispose of, and maybe it's something that would be good for a free store, then talk to Lindsay or talk to Rob Dunn. Rob doesn't do a lot. He can handle that. Yeah, he can do it. And we'll take care of that. All right. But on Monday the 2nd, if it's in the aisle, out it goes. You could, yeah, that's fine. Yep.
Just so people know,
we're moving all of it to your garage. Yes.
No, not to my garage.
Okay.
But if people want to give away things, and you may think that nobody wants it, you will be surprised how many people can use what you don't need. And we have been doing this for several years already. So the sooner you let our task group know, we have 6 people involved in that. So we have at least an opportunity to post it, to give it away before Monday. So just keep it in mind.
Okay. All right. Any other questions about this? Anything else while I'm here? Okay. Rob?
All right, I'll be taking the complaints about Tom Tango now. I'm Rob Dunn, Director of I'm Rob Dunn, Director of Environmental Services. One thing I did want to touch on for next week, obviously we have the holiday coming up next week, so that does affect housekeeping. This year will affect housekeeping on Thursday and Friday, obviously, because of that. So we will try to accommodate. We'll put notes in those people who are scheduled Thursday. Is anyone here scheduled Thursday next week? All right. We will have 1 or 2 staff here that will go through, but we'll send you a note if your housekeeper is not here, and then we'll figure out something to try and make up. I can't guarantee we're going to make up everyone, but we'll do the best we can with the holiday and situation when it comes to staffing and whatnot. So we'll try and make that up for you. Just bear with us. It might not be right away. It might be later on in the next week, but we'll try and get that made up to you. And also, this year, Christmas and New Year's does fall on a Wednesday. So normally it's the Monday people that get all the holidays. So you Monday people that normally get canceled when it comes to a holiday, you get a respite, and Christmas and New Year's are on a Wednesday. So now you Wednesday people are going to understand how the Monday people feel. I don't have anything else pressing at the moment, but just be patient with us through the holidays. as we try and, rearrange the schedules as we can. Take the mic, Bill.
Is the cottage trash going to be collected this Friday? I'm particularly concerned because
Yes.
next Friday,
Yes, we've had some issues, and I've had conversation with Waste Management about the cottage garbages specifically. I was assured last week, because I did ask the question to Waste Management on Tuesday. I said, is the holiday, which is not a holiday they celebrate. They only celebrate 6 holidays for them, but it's more of a staffing issue for them. It's not the holiday schedule that's a problem for them. So he wasn't aware that there was going to be a problem, but they gave me a phone call, an automated phone call that goes, to the front desk and to myself Friday afternoon that they were not coming, which I would like to know Thursday, but they don't usually know until the day of if they have a driver shortage or however it goes. I'm going to tell you yes and hope for the best because I've had the conversations. I can't, Bill, it's not in my control. I don't control how many drivers they have. I know that they have some issues with staffing and whatnot. One of the drivers explained to me, but I don't want to get into the depths of that company's problems with drivers right now because it's tenfold, but if it's not, I know because right now our compactor is being serviced for repair. So we have an open top that we have to pick up more frequently. That is also causing some problems, or because we would just get your garbage and take the compactor and put it in our compactor if we needed to the next day if they couldn't make it, or that Monday or whatever it would be. But right now, until that gets fixed, I'm a little tied with, garbage. So just try not to generate so much garbage.
Hang on, Ronnie Sue. So we're going to start doing this at Q&A and other meetings. Residents have requested this, that residents with questions will say their name and their apartment or cottage number and then say the question.
Actually, this might involve you too, Jason. Ronnie Sue Jaffe, Cottage 115. On that issue, you said that they called you, you were gone, it bounced to concierge. Why can't concierge then send out either a Sarah or an email
We can.
so that
Implement.
we know to keep the garbage in the garage over the weekend, or if they're coming Saturday?
The automated message will vary. So it depends, as long as concierge is getting that message, and we'll verify that they got the message too. The message will say, we'll get it tomorrow or we'll get it Monday.
Right.
It's varied for the messages that I've gotten from them when they've canceled the Friday
But
pickup.
could they do that?
Yes.
Yeah, that would
Yeah,
be great.
we can do that as long as I make sure that because I did add concierge's number to the automated message, but I got it last time too. I just want to verify, or Jason can verify that they're getting the message across to them so they can send out the mass email. Okay. Any other questions for me? No more complaints about Tom? Really? Okay. Phil?
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Phil Cavallo, Director of Dining. This is our first Q&A since the new menu rollout, so I'm sure there's going to be a couple of questions. Jared's in the back to help me answer anything that you may have if I cannot answer them. 2 quick things. Our executive chef, he unfortunately took his name out of the running. So he was supposed to start today, and we are back to the drawing board. So in the interim, it's going to be Jared again and myself helping in whenever I can, but you will not see a new face anytime in the near future. I will keep everybody posted. The second thing, which is better information, the menu cover holders will be delivered tomorrow. So starting, depending on what time they get delivered, tomorrow or the next day, we will have 2 different menus on the table. You'll be able to tell the difference between the weekly always available menu and the daily specials menu without even trying. So that should help some confusion. Those are the 2 bits that I have.
I'm Deborah Moore, Cottage 105. I eat your salads just about every day, and they're great, except for the figs. The green figs are a total loss. I would love it if you would put any other fruit in the salad except figs.
So that was an epic fail on our part. We did order Black Mission figs that came in that were ripe. The green ones should have never gone out. They just, I'll take the blame on that one. I didn't label them properly. I didn't teach the staff that they weren't ready to be served. So yes, you aren't the only one that's complained about the figs. The figs will be changed out, or we will get fresh Black Mission figs in that will be a lot more tasty.
Are the menus going to be one menu per table instead of 4 or so? No, you're not.
Every person will have their own menu. That way we don't need to hand it around, and we don't need to worry about germs or anything like that. That's it, really? Okay. Shannon.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shannon Scatoro, the Director of Marketing. Not too much new things on my end. We are still full. We're still growing our waiting list. We've had 2 settlements in November. We have another 6 planned between now and the end of the year, bringing in 13 more residents. What I do want to ask is if anybody here is okay or would like to show their home for anyone looking for a tour and to see a certain size apartment, please reach out. When we're full like this, it's, we get tours still weekly, quite a few, and it's nice to have residents that are wanting us to contact them, so we don't feel like we're kind of, bothering you if we reach out. Tours are pretty quick. They take maybe 5 to 10 minutes in your home. Myself or someone from my team would be with them, so it's not just a random person coming in. You can be there, you cannot be there. We can handle all the talking. You don't have to worry about giving a spiel, but we greatly appreciate it. And it's always nice to see a furnished home when somebody's coming in to take a look. That's it. Any questions for me? All right, thank you.
Okay, I am Jason Irish. I have a few things. So I'm the Director of Concierge and Communication Services. First thing I'll say is with the holidays coming up, obviously next week, Thanksgiving, if you're going away, make sure you fill out an away form with the concierge desk. And obviously we've got a couple holidays next month. So this goes for any time you're going away. Make sure you fill out that form. This helps us when we're doing the courtesy check. The big one that I have to talk about is this Sunday, we've got the concert here in the PAC. That we did have a sign up for at the concierge desk. This room can only fit so many people. We've got a limit of 100. So if you did not sign up, check with the desk now, get on a wait list. But they're going to be checking names at the door. Unfortunately, we just can't take anyone extra, and it's for residents only. It is going to be in the great room, but they're suggesting for IL residents not to go to the great room. Right. Well, I was going to get to that. Yeah. So we're also going to stream it in the classroom. So it'll be here, classroom, streaming on the TV. It will be in the great room, but last I've heard is that they're suggesting IL residents not go there because of some of the COVID cases that they've had. If that changes, we'll let you know in the Chanticleer this week. But as of now, yeah, just get your name on the list. If you're not on the list, check the other locations. There is this Friday the culinary trip, which was full with a full wait list. We did just have one cancellation, so we'll be able to add one person to it. We did add another trip for December, but I have bad news about that. The culinary closes down when school is not in session. So when we pick that date is out. So we're not going in December. So everyone that signed up for the December, it's going to say it on the trip sheet when we return it tomorrow that we're pushing it to January. So we apologize for keep on pushing this off, but it's kind of out of our control. I wanted to talk about a new employee. Most of you have probably seen him. His name is Dave Ostrow. He does most of the setups. You've seen him at concierge. He sits at reception. He'll also do some driving. Very nice guy. If you see him, say hello. There was a little blurb about him in the Chanticleer last week or 2 weeks ago. But he's, new employee, very nice, very eager, very happy to be here. So say hello when you see him. Winter travel, winter transportation, winter parking. Over the next couple weeks, Tom will put stuff out, but we'll post signs at every exit door for where you can park and how you should park. So keep an eye out for those signs. Those will probably go up, sometime early December. And then also for transportation, medical appointments, again, we required 72 hours notice. And we really give it up until like the day to decide whether or not we're going to cancel any medical appointments. We try not to, but we don't want to go out on the road if there's any kind of inclement weather. We're not taking any chances. So just be aware when you make an appointment to keep an eye on the weather yourself, that we may end up asking you to reschedule that appointment. And that's really all I have. Any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Oh, Jason, is this your book? All right. I'm Michelle Grimolia, the CEO here at Woodland Pond. Does anybody have any questions, comments, anything for me? Oh, hold on. Just make sure you introduce yourself for your neighbors.
Carl Rodman, 330. Are you going to give us a report on last night?
Yes, I'm gonna do it right now. So last night was the first planning board meeting and our application went in for the renovation. I watched starting at 8:15 because I knew we were number 8 out of 9 on the agenda and the meeting started at 7. Our application started at like 9:30, 9:45. And they finished up about a half an hour later. So it was lengthy. It went well. We were hoping it was going to go so well that they would be willing to agree to schedule the public hearing right away. But they do want to take one more. We're on the agenda for December 17th, but in the interim, they want the village consulting engineer, which is Bernier and Larios, to do a once over officially on it. So we've been in consultation with Bernier and Larios throughout the process of putting the application together, and they've had no questions, no concerns, but officially they want to have their consulting engineer officially sign off on anything before they were willing to schedule the public hearing. So what will happen next? I'm very confident. They didn't have any significant questions. There was a question raised by one council member about how this impacts or will be impacted by the New Paltz affordable housing requirement, which briefly, it doesn't affect this application, but there is a provision in New York's New Paltz Municipal Code that requires that certain developers of new developments since 2015 include at least 10% affordable housing subject to certain conditions. CCRCs are excluded from that because the primary reason, not to get into the details too much because it'll be confusing, but the reason is because you neither rent nor own from us. You are not renters and you are not owners. You have a contract for residency and care for life. So that technically as an exclusion, there's an actual carve out. They specifically excluded Article 46 CCRCs from the reg. But for the purposes of last night, it's not an issue because there's no additional units being built as part of the renovation. So this is a separate application than an application that might go in for an expansion. So it went well. The next thing that will happen is if it's similar to what happened when we did the 6 units, we had to post notice to our neighbors. Didn't we have to put a notice up about the public hearing was coming? We had to basically get a list of neighbors within an approximate area, and we had to mail out a notice of the public hearing. And I think it has to go in the paper. That has to be out for 30 days before the public hearing can happen. Then they have the public hearing, and then the process progresses. So our civil engineer, who is the primary representative on this application, had told us he thought that this could get done in 4 months of planning board meetings. So we're hoping that that's the case. So we'll see. The other news is that we have signed or drafted and sent over to opposing council the purchase and sale agreement for one of the parcels for the expansion. This particular landowner who owns one of the 3 had asked that if we were done with our due diligence and the titles came back clear and we were going to proceed, that we close that deal in 2024. So we will be purchasing one of the 3 prospective parcels this year. So this is the parcel that currently has the concrete pad on it up George Danskin Way gravel road where we park the winter equipment. And some of you took a tour and you saw there was like a little concrete pad and things and a bunch of junk in the grass and everything. That's going to be ours, all ours, by the middle of December. So that's exciting too. And the board had determined that if the title searches came back clear and all of the due diligence that we needed to do on the environmental side was clean, which that is now all complete roughly a year later, we will be acquiring all of the parcels, even if we don't immediately go forward on an expansion. And the reason for that is because we want that land, even if we don't use it right away. This means somebody else can't come in and take it from us, because if we eventually want to expand, even if the plan we have now doesn't go right away, it's the ideal property for us to have to be able to utilize for park space or whatever. So there has been a decision made that we will be purchasing all 3 parcels, even if an eventual expansion does not happen. So our footprint will be expanding by those parcels. The other 2 parcels, which we're not closing on this year, will be closed on after we do the first round of financing. You need to be looking on your calendar, and we will talk about it certainly. We are going to be doing a project financial update for residents in the beginning of December. Okay, so that's a meeting that you'll probably all be very interested in, because it's going to go through the financials, where they stand now, what we're projecting related to both the renovation and the potential expansion. So I know that's of great interest to you all. Any questions on any of that before we go into active shooter? Okay, and I want to thank you all for your continued support through this process. All right, so I don't know how many of you here are new, and I don't know how many of those that are new since last October have ever personally been involved in either an active shooter or lockdown drill. We decided 2 years ago that in addition to you understanding what you're supposed to do when it's fire safety and so forth, that it would be important for you to at least have heard from us and trained on what happens if this community has to go into a lockdown. Okay. This was partially prompted by the fact that we did have an incident with a resident guest who had a mental and medical health episode where he could not be redirected. He just kind of had a breakdown, but ultimately ended up coming in through the open loading dock door, smashed his head into a picture frame with glass on it. And it really kind of prompted us to say, like, a lockdown doesn't just have to be an active shooter. A lockdown could be anyone, a resident with dementia that has a break with reality. It could be a disgruntled employee. It could be anything. It could be a bear. You've heard us say that 1,000 times if the bear comes in. So we decided to take what I consider to be a rather progressive step, especially in senior living, and begin to train you all on what to do if there is an active shooter situation or a lockdown. Tom is going to go into detail about the protocols. We're going to watch a brief video, and we are going to send you away with a handout. Okay, the handout is a boiled down or crib note version of what Tom is going to present. And I would recommend that you put it on your door so that every time you walk out of your apartment or cottage, you remember, these are the things that I have to keep in mind. Because this is going to be a circumstance, if it ever happens, that's going to be very stressful. So the more you see it, just seeing it every day and remembering it will help you if the situation ever happens. The other thing that I'll share is that for those that were not here last year, on October 4th of 2023, after a year of planning, Woodland Pond was the host site of a multi-agency lockdown drill a real simulation. It involved the state police, the local police, EMS, fire, Ulster County Office of Emergency Management. There was a SWAT team, an ESU team that came. And just as we needed to have the training and a real scenario, all of those agencies had never, up until that point, ever had a coordinated drill together. So each of them had done their own drills, but in a real life situation, it's not just going to be one agency that comes. So it was valuable for them to figure out what worked and what didn't. It was very valuable for us because we established some things and we learned some things. And in advance of that, we did mini drills at Woodland Pond. And one of the things that we discovered was 2 years ago, our communication system with you for emergencies was poor. We had a system, but we weren't using it consistently. We didn't have you in the expectation of, if Woodland Pond has an emergency, they're going to send me an alert. So we spent 12 months or so in advance of the drill getting the residents used to getting the SARA notifications and having you look to make sure that you're getting it on your text or your email or your landline. Because as Tom will reiterate, when we have an emergency here, whether it be a flood's coming or, you know, we have a bear in the building or whatever, that's the one way we can at least attempt to get in touch with all of you in your homes. Okay, we send a message, we hit one button and it sends it out to you all. We also have, for many of you, your loved ones' contact information in a distinct file that we can send it to them too. And that's voluntary. But if it's important for your family to know what's going on here on this campus, you can add them as well. You just need to give their contact info to concierge. And then this way, as a situation develops, we have the ability to send out these messages to you and your loved ones if you want, so you can keep apprised as to what's going on. And it's extremely critical because we can't have concierge getting phone calls or visits, because if the stuff hits the fan, chances are it's going to start at either concierge or reception. They're going to need to be available to be coordinating with management, coordinating with the first responders. They may be in a threatened position, so they may evacuate the desk. We don't know, but our point of telling you this is because we want you to get in the habit of expecting communication from us through those alerts and not calling concierge, to get those kinds of updates. Okay. Before I hand it over to Tom, can I take any questions or does anyone have any comments about this? Okay, Tom, do you want to take it away? How do you think you want to start?
I'll say hello.
Okay.
All right. Hello. Like Michelle said, we want to talk about what do you do in the event of active shooter? And like she said, prior to the big drill last year on 10/4, October 4th, we had to think about what do we tell our staff to do? What do we tell residents to do? And we went to Leading Age as a group of senior living facilities. We went to a conference they had where they had a presentation that Jason and I went through about what do we tell staff. And I'll show you what they said, what we're doing. One of the other things even before we get to this is it's a mindset that I'd like to get through to everybody, not just residents, but staff too. Everybody grew up in schools and they would have fire drills. And on a fire drill, everybody would leave the building. And that just became ingrained. And that's what people think when they hear a fire alarm or they hear the alarm. Oh, we have to get outside or we have to go downstairs, and all of us go to concierge and things like that. And we spent last few years, and you guys have done amazing. We spent the last few years trying to coach everybody. No, when you hear the fire alarm or when you hear an issue here, the best place for you is to stay where you are unless directed otherwise. And we even brought fire chief in to help educate. We brought the police chief in who would help educate. And so to try to do all we can to reinforce to staff and residents to stay where you are, unless of course the fire is right there, but to, stay where you are, because first of all, you don't know where the incident is, and having everybody trying to leave prevents people from getting in to help. So I just want to say that first. So the next thing is, what do you do in an active shooter situation? Well, the first is the label that they came up with is what they call the 4 outs. That there's 4 things that you would do. So the first one, let me just hold this. The first one, all right, what do you do in a lockdown situation? Let me get back to that. Well, let me get back to this a minute. The 4 outs. And if it seems like I haven't given this presentation before, I probably haven't. The 4 outs. The first thing is get out. So in other words, if you were in a room and you hear that there's an active shooter situation, you might want to get out. But that's a big if, because you don't know where it's going to be. If we were sitting here right now and we all heard there's an active shooter that walked in at Concierge, should we all try to run out? No, because he might be in the hallway, or his partner might be his partner might be here. So we would stay here unless somebody told us to get out. If there was an active shooter situation that we heard, and all of a sudden the policeman came right in and said, all he is out this way, well, then we would do that, because that's what we would be told. The second one would be hide out. Again, if we're here and we hear that there's an active shooter situation down in Concierge, we would close those doors, we would turn the lights out, have everybody turn their cell phones off, and we'd be really quiet. And we would just pretend that we would be here, and maybe the active shooter would just walk on by thinking this is an empty, vacant room. Or then there's keep out. So we do that. We turn everything off. We turn the cell phones off. We close the doors. We turn the lights out. But we take a bunch of things like the file cabinet, desks, chairs, and we put them against the door to try to keep out the active shooter. So he would open the door. Maybe he would open the door and he could still open the door, but he sees all the stuff. He's not going to try to walk past it. He'll keep on going someplace easier. The fourth thing would be takeout, meaning we tried everything. We barricaded the doors. We turned all the lights out, but that active shooter is coming in. Well, we're not just going to sit here and let him try to shoot us. Jason's going to take him out and is going to do what he can to deactivate the situation. So again, get out. You obviously try to get out of the situation if you can. Hide out. We're going to hide so that the active shooter doesn't think we're here. Keep out. We're going to put barricades up to make it difficult for them to get in. And we're going to take out if that is the only option. So let's go back to this thing here. We're going to go down this list, and then we're going to watch a video. So what do you do in a lockdown? A lockdown is a code yellow is a lockdown, meaning that code yellow could be an active shooter, but it could be a bear came into the hallways. And we use that to say a lockdown, meaning stay where you are. Don't walk around. So we would be sending it by the telephone would all turn in, all the phones would turn into speaker phones, or on the SARA system is how you're going to get the notice. I can't stress enough how important it is that you keep up your cell phone numbers with Concierge. If you get a new cell phone, tell Concierge. Or if your family gets new cell phones and you want them notified, tell Concierge. All right, so you're sitting at home, you're sitting in here, you're eating breakfast, you're at the dining room. and you hear there's a code yellow, active shooter or code yellow. What do you do? First thing is stay calm. Don't get excited. That's not going to help anything. Seek shelter where you are. If you're in the apartment, you stay there. You lock the doors. If you're all in the dining room, stay in the dining room. We don't want everybody running out of the dining room. Also, if you're in your apartment or you're somewhere and you see people in the hallway, go in the hallway and have them come in with you. So you're here and you hear active shooter, you'd be looking out here and you'd be like, no, Jared, hurry up, get in here with us. And you close the door. So you'd make sure that people come in and hide with you. If you're in an office or an activity room, you stay there. Like, let's say you go down to Rob's office to complain about things that he's not doing right. And while you're in there, you hear there's an active shooter. Well, stay there in Rob's office. He thinks he's Batman anyway, so it would be a good place. If you're in the dining hall, remain in your seat. Don't move or attempt unless you're told otherwise. Because if you're in the dining room and something happens, the dining staff might say, no, all you is come out here, because they might get information from the police or from somebody else. Do not try to assist any injured people. The reason being, like right now, if we're standing here and there's an active shooter and all of a sudden we see Jared got shot out in the hallway and we go out to help him, you know, you've all seen movies. Do not try to open the door for anyone until it is all clear. Don't try to make a call on the telephone or on the radio, or anything that's going to make noise if you're hiding from the active shooter. Make as little sound as possible. Silence radios, TV, cell phones. That was something that we learned. That was something that really came about when we did the big drill. As you walked around, like the police all walked around, we walked around with the police. And as we go through the hallways, a lot of people did well, but we could hear people talking on their cell phones. A lot of Woodland Pond residents like to use a speakerphone loudly. And as we were walking down the hallways during the drill, we could hear people in their apartments saying, "We're having a drill. I can't talk now." But if that was an active shooter, they would hear that. So just be aware. If you see law enforcement people, make sure you don't look threatening. Make sure you don't, hold anything up that they would think is a weapon. Only when you hear all clear do you relax. And by all clear, it would have to be something like not just a voice outside the door. That could be the bad guy. An all clear would come through the SARA system. An all clear would be somebody that you recognize. If you hear Jason in the hallway saying all clear, well, then it's all clear. So these are the things that we've learned from the drill. And one of the reasons we're doing this today is real soon, there's going to be another active shooter drill. It's not going to be quite the same scale as what we had before, but we are in discussion with the police chief and New Paltz Police. They'll be helping us through it. They'll be with us for it. And it'll be, I can also tell you can relax. It won't be Thanksgiving Day, but it will be soon. And when it happens, what we're hoping is that everybody, remembers every word I said today and does it exactly right. So the 4 outs, and now I just want to show a quick video. One more thing. There's another good point. And this also came about from when we were prepping for the big drill. They stress enough, don't assume that somebody else called 911. Let's say you're down on the first floor of the South Wing, and you think somebody with ill intent just came in through the door. And you say, oh, that person looks pretty evil, but I'm sure somebody must have called 911 about him. And meanwhile, nobody did. So what the police tell us is they would rather get 100 calls than none. And if they get more calls, that's just going to give them more information. So never assume that somebody else called. Never assume that concierge called. Feel free to call 911 if you feel you see something that warrants that. All right, now Jason's going to put on the video. All right. Jason, turn the lights back on. Questions?
Before we take questions, I want to have Lindsay hand out this flyer and just go through this with everybody in their hands. This is what you're going to take with you. I want to just go through these. These are a couple of other important points. One of the things that we did as part of the preparation for the emergency exercise last year was we consulted with a famous security consultant, my husband, who is retired police lieutenant, as some of you know. But when he was still a police lieutenant, one of the things that he did in Ulster County was he went to local volunteer fire departments and taught them and trained them on the fire department's role in the case of an active shooter situation. So knowing that, we kind of thought, well, maybe he's got some good insight onto this, right? Because he's been doing lockdown drills and stuff in schools and so forth. And he helped us to, observe some things. And one of the things that came out of that was we installed panic buttons at both desks. So there's a discrete way for the front desk staff to hit a panic button, and it does not set off an alarm, but it calls emergency responders. It notifies the 911 center that someone has activated the panic button, and it locks the building down. Okay, so it deactivates the badge system, and it also releases the fire doors. And the reason for that is because anything that can be an impediment to a shooter is helpful. So the more fire doors they have to come through, the more things that are in their way, the more likely to be a deterrent. So we invested in that, and that is, something that's important.
And just saying, what it does do is when they push that button, all the exterior doors, the only badges that can get through those doors are the badges that the police have already. The police have badges that can get in. So it means that once we push that button, I couldn't come up and use my badge. It won't let me in. It won't let any of you in. It'll only let the police in.
Right, because you don't know if all of a sudden, Jason loses his mind. It could be Jason. It never will be. But so I just want to go through this paper with you, and then we'll go through questions with Tom. But these are some summarized thoughts to have, in terms of what Tom said. Really important. Please do not call or visit concierge. Okay, that's in the case of a lockdown, and especially in the case if you hear the fire alarm go off. Okay, in the event of a lockdown, we are not setting off the alarms. It will not be us. So if we call a lockdown or announce a lockdown, and then you hear a fire alarm going off, it could be somebody burning a pot on their stove, which is exactly what happened when we did the drill in October, correct, coincidentally. Or it could be the bad guy, because sometimes they pull the fire alarm to pull people out. That's been done in school shootings. So it will not be us, okay, if we have called a lockdown. So please don't call concierge or come to concierge. That could be a draw for a bad guy. Be ready to accept those SARA messages from us. We want you to shelter in place. And the concept that we want you to think about more than anything is make yourself as invisible as possible. So if you're sitting in the dining room, it's hard to make yourself invisible, right? But there's always a way that you can make yourself a little bit more invisible. So right now, for example, Lindsay's sitting out here in her chair and I can see her. But if Lindsay stood up and just scooched over into the corner, she would become invisible to me. So even though she might be in an exposed area, she's made herself as invisible as she can in that moment. Okay. You don't want to draw attention to yourself. Shut off lights. This is even in your own homes. This is in every room in Woodland Pond. So if you're in the card room, it's glass doors, but you can go in there, you can close the doors, you can shut off the lights. In the classroom, you can close the blinds. Understand what's around you to make yourself invisible. Close blinds, close doors, lock doors. Hide anywhere that you can. When we did the drill, 50 residents ended up in the main kitchen for a couple of hours because the staff directed them and said, don't wait out here, come into our kitchen. We learned some things from that. You guys actually need chairs after 2 hours of standing in the kitchen, and bathrooms and so forth. So, but look around you and go wherever you need to, even if it's my office or whatever. Move against a wall or a corner if you can't hide. Okay, that's just automatically going to make you less, obvious to somebody per se. Really important to be quiet. And this is a time for you guys to be rude to each other, be rude neighbors. But if your neighbor is sitting next to you and they're yapping and you've heard that there's a lockdown situation or an active shooter, tell them to hush up. Tell them to be quiet because a shooter is looking for the easiest target. And so is a wild animal. So if you're talking and making noise and panicking, I can understand that, but that's going to make you more of a target. So being quiet is really important. We say shut the ringer off on your cell phone, but we want you to keep your cell phones on and be able to receive messages. So kind of get used to that. Stay clear of the fire doors because we just said that they are going to close automatically when the panic button is hit. And then there is something on the back because I didn't do a good job printing this, but this is really important. We talked about this during the drill. Find anything you can to protect yourself if you are confronted. That could be a cane. It could be a coffee cup. It could be a hot soup. It could be a chair. It could be your purse. You are going to be possibly in a fight or flight situation. And the time is now to look around and say, this, you know what, this might stop a guy. Right? It's the only thing I can pick up. I'm not strong enough to pick up a chair, but I could pick this up and hit somebody's face with it or throw it at somebody. So it's a reality that I hope we never have to deal with, of course. But we're giving you this information to empower you. And we want you to feel comfortable asking us questions. We want to drill on this at least once a year. We want you to get comfortable with the difference in thought as to what Tom said about how it used to be. Everybody go evacuate, everybody assemble in the main office or whatever. It's now shelter in place, unless you're in imminent danger, like with a fire, obviously. So now we'll turn it over for questions. Oh, Jason wants to talk a little bit about badges.
So if the fire alarm goes off and we don't press the panic button, badges still work. But if we press our panic buttons, your badges will not work. So if for whatever reason you're out of the building and you come back in and your badge is not working on exterior doors, maybe I don't know if it's safe to assume, but just assume maybe something bad is happening in the building unless your badge got deactivated for whatever reason. So don't assume that. Just go to concierge and we'll figure it out. Actually, wait. Don't go to concierge. Maybe just call. Let's hope that never happens. But I know. I'm thinking of like Nora Brown comes back to the third floor and her badge doesn't work. Just don't assume something's happening unless we're saying to assume that. I don't know. But if we press the panic button, your badges will be deactivated until we reset the button. So I just wanted to say that. That was a bad way to say that. Yeah. I'm going to go to Saul Mora.
All right.
I'm Saul Mora. We live in Cottage 2. We were involved trying to get back on campus from George Danskin Road. And there was the campus was blocked But behind us and in front of us, there were about 6 or 7 cars sitting there getting very annoyed because they weren't warned that the road was closed in a position where they could drive away. So my only thought was that if you're going to shut down George Danskin, that's fine, but don't shut it down at a point where people get in and they can't get out again because the other roads are shut down.
You're talking about last year for the big
Last
drill.
year. Yeah.
He was just commenting that last year for the drill, there were people who were, due to the shutdown, that were either trapped inside or outside on the road. Their cars, they couldn't come in. And that was true. For the big drill last year, we wanted a lot of reality. And there were signs that were placed out on the road warning that there might be such an event. But due to the size of the event last year, there's just certain things that were going to happen. And, and we also notified people ahead of time about that there was going to be a drill that day, and you might not be able to get off or on campus for a period of time. We had contractors that were here that we made sure they knew. At the time they were still building the Silver Birch cottages. That shut down for the day because we couldn't guarantee that they could leave at the end of the day. So there was certain realities that happened that day. As we go in the next couple of weeks, when we're going to do another drill, it's not going to be that size. It's not going to be that level.
If I were caught outside, would you suggest I go get in my car or hide in the bushes or something? Because that was an idea.
That's a good question. I would say if you were outside and you don't know what's happening where, I would hide the closest place you are. So if you have to walk to your car that's far away, that might not be as safe as just going in a bush nearby. Because like Michelle said, you'd want to try to be as invisible as possible and not be exposed for that period of time.
The other thing I would suggest is use your cottage neighbors, right? So if you're outside and you get locked out and you're truly locked out, but let's say you don't have car keys and it's inclement weather, we are neighbors, right? So everyone is going to have gotten an alert at that point that there's a lockdown situation. So if you live in a cottage and one of your neighbors comes up and they're panicked and they need to come in and take shelter, please do that. Please allow for that and accept that.
Good point.
So in a lesser degree, let's say the threat was coming from inside, let's say a visitor that belonged there, maybe visiting parents
Right.
or whatever. Would this protocol be the same even in a
Yes.
lesser degree?
Yes, because like you say, the threat might be coming from internal. Well, it's the same thing. Stay where you are, shelter in place, because we don't know where that's going to be. So no matter what, no matter where it comes from, once you hear that there is a lockdown, just stay where you are, unless, of course, that person is right there. Yeah.
Hi, Evelyn Rosenthal, 327. If you have a dog and the dog starts barking, is that good or bad?
It's unavoidable, but also you could argue that, and I'm making this up as I'm thinking right now, dogs bark when people are not home. So, I mean, if I were an evildoer, active shooter, I'm going through the hallway, I hear dog bark, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're home, because dogs can bark when you're not home.
Second part of the question, if we're locked up for a long time and the dog has an accident and we can't clean it up ourselves, when do we call Rob?
Right away. In the middle of an active shooter situation, he's going to come and clean up that dog mess.
Stop me. Yeah, those are good. Quiet. Those are good points. And I had something that I wanted to say that was important, and now I totally forgot it. So Tom, take the next question, and then I'll think of it. Or Jeffrey, here you go.
At the last drill, I think the law enforcement folks had difficulty interpreting the numbering system on the units.
Right.
I'm not quite sure what can be done about that, but was anything done to respond?
The fact that there was a drill helped. And it also the fact that they had an issue kind of validated even having a drill. In other words, so, it helped them. They realized how it is. We have since the drill, they have been given very clean, very, easily readable floor plans for their vehicles. So, I mean, that's one of the there's like many things that came out of the drill. And that was one of them, like, their ability to get around. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to say something. I think we added a wayfinding sign since then as well. But the reason why it was complicated during that is because we have wayfinding signs that tell you where you go for certain numbers. The guest room, which is where this took place, doesn't follow our normal floor plan and numbers.
Right.
This may sound like a crazy question, but for those of us who live in a cottage, would you suggest that if there was a lockdown that we hide in our car, in our garage? And I have that for two questions. One, we'd be less visible there. And number two, we could make a getaway if someone tried to get in.
Off the top of my head, I don't see any reason why not. That might be something that, I'm going to make a note of that. And when I speak next to the police department, that might be a good question for them.
I remembered what I wanted to say. Another step that we took in advance of the drill, some of you will remember this, we had our staff go around and wiggle your door handles. More than 50% of the apartments in the building were unlocked. That's a huge issue. That's a huge issue. Because active shooters, if they're motivated or if somebody's looking for something, they're looking for an easy target. You're making yourself an easy target, not only to a threat of that type if you're leaving your apartments and cottages unlocked, but you're also leaving it susceptible to human nature, right? So this is not a lockdown building with cameras and like deep security. And, you guys have stuff that you want to keep in your places. So you need to keep your doors locked. And that's not to say that Woodland Pond has an existential threat, but that's just prudent home management and safety. And the other thing that we found was many of you had little keys on your shelves, hidden by a little tchotchke. That's also not a good idea. Tchotchkes, if you won't like them, you like them. But the key under the tchotchke on the little shelf, that's like the first place somebody's going to look to see, is there a key here? Okay, so understandable that we trust each other and we live in somewhat of an isolated and protected bubble. But these are the important things that we know are behaviors that need to be corrected. Another question?
One more thing on that. Twice a week, security is finding garage doors open. They close them when they find them. There's one resident, I'm not sure who, but has an electric car. And when that cord is outside, they don't close that door. So whoever that is, just be cautious.
I was walking in the north wing and I noticed that several of the stairways did not have the floor number.
Yeah.
I had no idea if I was on the 4th, 5th, or 6th floor.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do need to get that done. Yep. Good point.
Joanne Whittington, Cottage 97. Is there anything special that cottage livers? Is there anything special that cottage dwellers should be aware of or be doing, since our doors don't automatically lock or anything like that?
No, I mean, you are still tied in with the SARA system, so you're going to get the same notice that everybody else would get. The only thing I would ask and reiterate to the cottage people, and in the past few weeks, some people have done it, is don't hesitate to call if you see something. Last week, we had a new maintenance guy that I guess a lot of people hadn't seen, and he was out cutting some stuff on the slope, and people didn't know who he was, and they called right away. And that was great. A few months ago, some cottage residents saw some people walking through here that didn't belong here, and they called right away and the police came. And that's great. So because you guys are out there, you see things before a lot of people in the building are going to see them. So, the best thing I would tell you is, help us out. And if you see something, call. That's, the best answer I got right now.
Very brief. It's just about the slides that you put out that you had on your
Right.
presentation. It says get out. On the other end, the first instruction here is to stay in place. So it seems
Yeah, and the get out, the get out, the first of the 4 outs, the get out means get out if able and it makes sense. In other words, like if we're sitting here right now and we hear that there's an active shooter and it's at reception, well, we're going to stay here until we know anything. But if the police are here right away and the police come in and say, all yous get out, well, then we're going to get out, Or if the shooter's in here, we're going to get out. Right. And it's much like the same thing with fire. If there's a fire here, stay where you are unless it's getting warm. If the fire is where you are, then leave. But if the fire is not where, like if we're in here right now and there's a fire in room 2140 in Health Center, we have no reason to leave. We have no reason to everybody go to concierge and ask. We just want to stay here. So, and it's a hard, the whole thing of planning what to do in an emergency situation is hard because it's an emergency situation and people panic. And, that's why also we want to train and drill, because in an emergency situation, people tend to revert to what they're trained. So if we train and to stay where we are, be quiet, make ourselves invisible, listen, then that's what hopefully everybody will do in such a situation.
Mary Evans, 430. Will we know when you have the drill that it's a drill? And I'm sort of asking because I don't need to move furniture in front of my door if it's a drill. I mean, staying in place is one thing, but do we need to know otherwise?
Yeah, we do announce it. I think we're not going to tell you this time too far ahead, but when it comes across, it'll come across as a drill. Because we don't want to cause panic and overreaction and things like that. But we do want to, but I don't want to say it's going to be, December 9th at, 2:20 in the afternoon. I don't want to say that. And by the way, it won't be then.
Right. So one of the things that we do when the drill happens is our team rounds and we take down notes and we make mental notes. We take actual notes and say, these people were not doing what they needed to do. This many people were, carrying on and like having a fight in the pool or whatever. So that we know what we need to then follow up with, right? So it's a training exercise, and then we will get back with you.
And also, like I said, the police department are going to be with us, and just like we're doing this for drill for our benefit, their participation is really helping them because they're going to use this as a drill. They're going to drill on this too. They're going to reinforce what they need to do. So some of the timing and the events of what might exactly happen, what scenario will be, we'll come up with that in consultation with the police department.
Mary, when we had the big drill, we actually put furniture in front of the door. So.
Right. Yep.
Jeffrey Gibson, Cottage 115. Who is allowed behind the cottages other than the Orkin man?
You mean on a day-to-day basis? Or
on any kind of where we see someone we don't recognize.
Well, I say first, if you don't recognize someone, don't hesitate to call. Doesn't matter. But the landscapers go back there. In the coming year, you might see more people than you have before because there might be some surveyors, there might be inspectors, there might be some other people that have to do with, the renovation. And then, of course, the maintenance guys could be back there at any point.
Well, they're disposable, right?
Right. If it's one of them, just push them over the hill. That's fine.
Good.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah. But we do try, but in sort of answering your question, we do try to be respectful of your backyard. You know, we try not to, you know, we don't want you looking out the window and seeing things or feeling invaded. Right.
Seeing a snake.
We don't want that either. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Tom Gilder. I'm Tom Gilder, 536. I'm one of the original Club 55 that spent the 3 hours in the kitchen
Right.
test. I think one of the things that you need to emphasize to all residents, the staff has been trained. The staff has been put through this. Pay attention to the staff. Don't argue with them. That became quite the situation. They know what they're doing. It was very evident with what happened at Club 55. So please emphasize that.
And that's a good point. During the drill, there's going to be things that go wrong. But just like Jeffrey said about the police not sometimes knowing how to get around, you know, there's going to be things that go wrong. That's the very reason we do this. So if during the drill you see something that another resident, a staff, Rob is doing wrong, you know, feel free to make a note of that, and we can talk about that, and we can debrief on that, and we can figure out a plan, you know, what to do next time. So, you know, that's a good point.
Last one.
All right, last one.
Susan, apartment 436. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to be away for a week. So if I was coming back like the day after Thanksgiving, I get a text or anything, since I will say, you know, they'll know that I was away.
Yeah, if you're not home on the day of the drill or on the day of a real event, if you're in the SARA system and we have your cell phone number, you're going to get a text. If you're going away, and Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're going away for a period of time and you don't want to get those texts, you could ask concierge and they can disable you for a period of time.
Well, I mean that I.
Right, you would know by your phone, by your email, by your text, just like if you were here. Right. Right. All right. Thank you. And we'll, like I say, the only, as far as timing of the drill, the only thing I'll commit to you right now is it won't be on a holiday. No. Other than that, could be any time. Thank you.